So good afternoon, and thank you for joining me. And I am giving this class in my daughter Malca's house. After we just had a birthday for Michal, I actually wanted to do a Sudat Hodaya for her because we are in such a different place than we were a half a year ago. However, because she still has like a peg and a port and a shunt in her head, like she still has a peg for the food and a port for the chemo and a shunt to discharge her fluids, even though she's doing amazing. Her father really wanted to wait until she is totally she doesn't have any of these holes in her and she's eating and we see huge miracles. He wants it to be something fuller when we do a Sudat Hodaya. So even though it was something I was really interested in doing it, I totally gave it up to his decision. But what they did too today is they did a birthday for Michal. Before I tell you about the birthday, and I really am telling you about it because I want to read to you what Malca wrote, what she read. We had like all the grandchildren and the grandparents over there, and she read something that she also wanted the friends to know about. And I think that many of you were on this journey with me, and it's important for me that you hear what Malca said. Before that, I was now a week up north. Ralph and I took a vacation. And last night, when I went to bed, I knew that today I was going to be at Michal Levona's birthday, and the whole family was getting together in Pandev Khana in a park to celebrate together. And at night, Ralph woke up at 3 and I woke up at 3 and we were talking about the past year. And when I fell back to sleep at 5 o'clock, I had a very vivid dream of, and this is all going to connect to our avodah, God willing. I had a very vivid dream that we had the whole family up north in this complex of Tzimarim where we were. And there was a huge, huge pool there. And the kids were all in the pool the whole entire day. And finally, in the evening, everyone, went to their own rooms. And my husband and I went to our own rooms. This was in my dream. And I couldn't fall asleep. And I told my husband, you know what, I want to go to the pool and I want to swim just by myself because I haven't had a minute to myself. And I go into the pool and it's all filled with everyone's swimmies and floaties and everything like that. And I go into the water and all of a sudden I see a head bobbing up in the water. And I think to myself, someone in my family's life is about to change from one end to the next. I said, I can't believe someone forgot their baby. And a baby drowned in literally, I felt terror and wash over me, not knowing who would have forgotten their baby. Because this past year, 4 of my daughters and daughter-in-laws had babies. Since Michal, we had 4 births. And I go to the baby and I pick her up. And it's a baby that I don't know. It's none of my daughters. And the baby is a girl. And she gave a cough, water came out of her mouth. And she starts breathing. She's like regular. And it was like a huge miracle because she must have been there for hours. And I take her out and bring her to my husband. And I tell, should we call the social services? Should we keep her? We don't want them to take her, but we want to keep her with us. We're going to raise her. And all my daughters were around and we're trying to figure out how could it be that this girl was fished out of the water alive. And that's when I woke up. And when I woke up, it's very telling when we have a dream that impacts us. And usually a dream that we remember is a dream that has meaning for us. So the first question you ask is, what's the feeling you had with the dream? Like I might have had this dream and I had a feeling of terror, sheer horror, or any other kind of feelings that I would have. And the feeling that I had was a lot of joy. Like there was a huge miracle. There was this baby that was in the water for hours on end. It was like a couple of hours till all the kids came out in the middle of the night. So I came back into the pool and it was a celebration. And I realized that it reflects to me exactly a year ago, Michal, when she was born in a water birth. And it was an incredible birth right before Kabbalat Shabbat. and when she came out, we were singing Lecha Dodi, and we were singing Mizmorei Shabbat, and she came out, like, had she come out a half hour later, it would have been on my birthday. But she had her own birthday. And then throughout the year, there were times when we were not sure that she was going to be able to stay with us or be with us. And I feel like taking the baby out of the water was Michal's rebirth. And we totally celebrated a full year where we lived to see miracles. We lived to see miracles in this year. It was a year where at certain points we were at the depth of despair, and there were very small steps in her recovery. And after all those small steps of recovery, we had like a huge step where we found out that the MRI was really, her growth shrunk substantially. And we realized that we had been living in a miracle. And it's something that I thank God for. And I think the dream reflected my going in and having her reborn in the water, but reborn and she's healthy, reborn and she is vital and she is happy and she is developing. Thank God. We still have much to pray for, but we've come such a long way where her physical therapist is saying, she's not going to have to see us much. And usually children with cancer, they go to a special GAN or like a special children's program that has, speech therapists and physical therapists and occupational therapists, that they're constantly being worked on the whole time. And the therapist said, like, literally, she doesn't have to go to this kind of GAN. She's doing it on her own. She started to crawl. And the next step is having her start to eat. She's not interested, she's not hungry, and God willing, we want her to start eating. That's something that we're praying for. Before I read what Malca wrote, I want to just say that one of the things, and this is a promo for my class on Tisha B'Av. On Tisha B'Av, I'm going to talk about, I was thinking to myself, what do I want to pray for Michal Levana? And I said, I want to pray that she will have a clean head. Her head will be totally clean. Her brain, her head will be clean. And I said, you know what that means, having a clean head? The avodah that I need to do on myself is I want to clean my head. And in that merit, Michal Levana is going to be able to heal more. Her head is going to be able to clean more. So on Tisha B'Av, we're going to be talking about what it means to have a clean head, how to walk around in this world with your head clean, this kind of freedom, not having your head buzzing all the time with so many different imaginations and complaints and criticism. We want to walk around in this world with a clean head. So that's something, God willing, I'm going to talk about on Tisha B'Av. Meanwhile, I want to read to you Malca's letter. And this is for all of you who were there, who gave, who called, who cared, who prayed. And each one of you knows exactly who you are, and came and stayed and incessantly helped. So, dear family and beloved friends, yesterday was Michal's year birthday. When we celebrated it, we celebrated twice. Yesterday, we celebrated a small party just with Michali's siblings. We made a dance party. That is what she loves. Right here in our dining room. And we celebrated the sweet family that we have. And a very strong ratzon came up in me to say thank you. This word is too small to contain the depth of my feeling, how much you have sustained us this past year. In every meaning of the word and in every way you could, with your prayers, with the good deeds you did and you added, running around inside the king's grave, night after night, where you watched Michali in the hospital and you gave us some respite, you gave us some rest. The fact that you were with us in the hardest hours of all, with a hug and understanding and words that were words that gave us solace, and well, I'm transliterating it as I read, and support. You were with us in the small little victories, and you followed every gram that she went up and every smile that she gave, for the hugs, for the phone conversations when we needed, for good advice, for honesty, for the constant support in anything we needed, for the wisdom to know when to give us our space as well. Thank you for the amazing food that you sent for us, right and left. You ordered, you organized, or cooked. For the people who pumped milk that Michal thrived on. And I just want to say that I'm stopping to read a minute, and when she says like the milk that Michal, that people pump, so at the beginning, the doctors, when Malca couldn't pump anymore, and Malca's milk was very like non-fattening, non-fat, and Michal needed a lot of fat, because in order to produce really good milk, you need to eat well and you need to rest well. That wasn't happening. So at a certain point, Malca, and the baby wasn't going up from her milk, so she just went on formula. But the minute Shalhevet had the baby, the doctor said we will only allow her to have milk from one of your sisters that we know is sterile, because she has an immune system that's compromised. It has to be from a very reliable source. And Shalhevet started to pump, and the minute Shalhevet started to pump for her, Michal started to gain weight, and the chemo and her biological drug makes her constipated. But the minute she started to drink Shalhevet's milk, she did not have constipation any longer, and it really is making her thrive. So she thanked Shalhevet for the mother's milk, and for a lot of medical journals that you read and looked into in order to understand all these new kind of concepts that came into our lives, for a good heart and a lot of love that was in everything that you did for us. And now we are back in the regular routine that's so blessed and so full, and it seems like it was almost a dream. I want to thank God on all the good that he did to us till now, that she is responding to the biological drug, that the growth is contracting, on the fact that she's so happy and so lively and communicative and crawling and climbing, and she's almost standing on her own, and she looks like she just wants to go and run. Thank you to all my children and all the love that we're surrounded. And Malca finished, and she said, I wanted to celebrate all this good together with everyone, and I want to know. This is what Malca read to us, and this is what I'm reading to you. And I remember when we were going through it, there was a point that Ralph said, no matter what happens, we're going to come out stronger than when we came in. And the truth is that the nurses in the hospital, we were there for 4 months. So one of the nurses came over and told me, listen, this type of situation usually smashes family to bits. A family that manages to survive it comes out stronger. And I want to thank God for the ability to come out stronger, the ability to be broken, but to be able to pick myself up, and to start putting the pieces together. And I am in the process of putting the pieces together. And that's what I'm thanking God for the strength, for the family around me, for the ability to pick up the pieces. Now, it says in the Zohar that there is a Bet Midrash, there is a big hall, and it's called the Hall of Mashiach, the Bet Midrash of Mashiach. And what is that Bet Midrash of Mashiach? Who is able to enter it? In other words, I feel like we're in the days of the redemption. We have our land of Israel and everything, and it's thriving, and the land has given us its fruit, and we are we have a strong army. There's learning Torah in Israel like there has never been before anywhere in the world. The amount of people learning Torah, amount of yeshivot that we have. And we have yeshivot combined with army. And we have yeshivot not combined with army. And there's a lot of, and Ralph and I were just up north new roads being built, so many cars on the road, major thoroughfares and highway and and everything was green because we had a rainy year this past year. Just that in itself is living in a miracle. However, we're in the times of Mashiach, the time of the redemption. It's here. Like it's here. Slowly, slowly it's happening and it's here. And I know everyone could tell me 100 different problems, but instead of telling me the problems that we have, I want us to concentrate on who will have the ability to go into the Bet Midrash of Mashiach. Because apparently the Zohar tells us that Mashiach has his own separate Bet Midrash. And the people that come into his Bet Midrash need to have one kind of characteristic. And the one characteristic, can anyone guess what it is? Who can come into the Bet into the Bet Midrash of Mashiach? Who is that? What characteristic do we need? Could anyone
humility.
What?
Humility.
Okay, one says humility. Any other ones?
I'm going to say hope.
Hope. Okay, let's continue. Okay, sounds good. Any other guesses of who could come into the Bet Midrash?
A good eye. A good
Yeah.
eye.
Sure.
Like an eye that only sees good.
A good eye. Beautiful. Okay. So I'm going to tell you what the Zohar says about who will come into the Bet Midrash of Mashiach. The person who could change bitterness to sweetness. That is the characteristic that is needed in the test when by the door they test us, and if we want to join in the Bet Midrash of Mashiach and be a student there, we need to take things that are bitter and turn them into sweet. Okay, we're not here to solve problems. We were not put into this world to solve problems. When we have problems, we know that they were put in here so we could connect to God, right? But we are here to turn the bitterness to sweet, to look deep within ourselves and try to extract, right? To extract the bitterness. And I could say that I've lived through a lot of bitterness this year. There were major amounts of bitterness that we went through. And the ability of Ralph to say, we're going to come out stronger, this is going to strengthen us. This is not going to break us. That's the ability to take bitterness and turn it into sweet. Now, we want to try to do that in all our relationships, right? In our relationships with our husband, with our children, with our parents, with our friends. Because God, first of all, he gave them to us. The fact that he gave them to us meant they're custom made for us. And this is the place he put us in this time, in this place, and it's just the right place for us. Now, when we go through life, there are going to be times where we're confronted with bitterness. And we need to take upon ourselves to be the midwives of the sweetness of the bitterness. In other words, we need to take this bitterness and turn it into sweet. And when we do that, we're birthing bitterness. We're birthing it into sweet. So we're constantly birthing a newer self. We're birthing a new level within us. And a birth is painful. Sometimes to take the pain and turn the bitter and turn it into sweet, it's a moment of birth and it's painful. But it's the step we need to take to join the Bet Midrash of Mashiach. I want to give you a story of what happened, of an avodah that I did with a father, and what it means to turn bitterness to sweetness. So in our this is a father who is in Ralph's community in Tel Aviv, and he has 5 children, and 4 of them are married and 1 of them is not. About 10 years ago, the mother upped and left. She left the father with one married child, 4 children not married, and she just wanted, the mother wanted to have nothing to do with anyone. She wanted to have nothing to do with her children. And it was a very messy divorce, and the children were very much aligned with the father. And the mother was like shunted aside. And there were times that the mother was trying to get closer to her children, and the children were too angry with her. The mother and father had issues for many, many years, but once the mother couldn't stand it anymore and she upped and left, all the children just sided with the father. Now the father was really a great father, and his children got married, except for one last son. The one last son did not get married. The son is 35 years old and not married. And the father came to me. And the son is very confused and walking around and trying different things and trying to go out. And nothing has happened. And the father asked me, what do you think is an avodah I need to do over here? And I asked him, when you talk about your wife, in what way do you talk about her? Now, I asked the question because I heard the father talk about the mother, and it's in a very impatient, derogatory, like shunting aside kind of, but there was a lot of bitterness, and it was a huge blow to the father's ego. The mother gets up and leaves and, doesn't want to have anything to do with him anymore, and even like not to have anything to do with the kids because she just didn't want to have anything to do with him. And he started to, to badmouth his wife. I said, you know what? We're going to stop right here. Stop it. Like, I've heard all this before. There was a lot of bitterness. And this, I was going with trying to turn the bitterness into sweet. I said, there's a lot of bitterness between you and your wife. However, your son sees his mother in a very negative, derogatory, very critical way. And he sees all the bad within her. However, everything that he sees bad about his mother is actually, because his mother is such a part of him, he is actually turns it inward to himself and sees himself in such a light. I want you to give birth to your wife, and you're doing it for the sake of your son, because this father has been going to like shadchanim and to therapists and to coaches, and his son was being taken here, there, and everywhere. The son took trips in order to discover himself in India and South America, like, and 35, not married, nothing doing. And the son is like beautiful and talented and nice and the works. And I said, if you love your son, you need to give birth to your wife again, and this time without any bitterness, but with sweetness. You need to put aside what was between you and her and offer your son the mother, a new mother, seeing your wife from bitterness to sweetness. And I want to tell you, he sat there and you saw like the click. There was a click, and he realized that what was stopping his son from getting married is the fact that within his son, there was a whole part in his son called mother, and that part was totally like crushed under. It had no life in his son, and he needed to bring his wife to life again in his son. Now, when it comes to his wife and the children, I believe that every mother wants to do good by her child. It doesn't matter if at the end of the day, it looks like, I will even say, the mother is abusive, okay? And I feel like the abusive parts come when the tov that a mother wants to give her children doesn't is not allowed to, she doesn't know how to express itself. But at the core, as mothers, we want our children to have Tov, and sometimes we express it in ways that leave a lot to be desired. But that's at the core. And if this father is able to rebirth his wife in his son's eyes, his son could start accepting the mother part of himself and liking himself and turning the bitterness to sweet. And that is the Bet Midrash of Mashiach. Okay. Any questions till now? Because I want to go to another part of the class that has a lot to do with how do we gain strength in this world. And it's going to be a part of the class that when I get to the States, we're going to expand it more. Anyone have a question till now? I just want you guys to tell me if you're able to hear me, because I know the internet is not great here. Just someone say yes.
Perfectly. Totally
Oh,
perfect.
okay, great. So no questions so far. So I am starting to teach from now for a couple of months. We're going to start learning about a young woman, and her name is Hani Weinberg. And why do I want to teach about her, and who is she, and what is she about? So I could say that I was introduced to her exactly a month and a half ago when Adele had the baby, and I was in her house watching Michal, and I enjoyed going to bed wanting to read. As I said, Malca. And I was looking through the bookcase, and I saw a book called 5 minutes a day. It's in Hebrew, 5 dakot b'yom. 5 minutes. Okay. I opened it up and I read the introduction, and it turns out that this young woman lived in Bnei Brak, and her name was Hani Weinberg. It turns out that her father-in-law was actually Benjamin Netanyahu's foremost lawyer, who our prime minister in Israel is under, he is accused of various things that I don't believe he did, but anyway, he's accused, and he took a really great lawyer, and the lawyer happened to be this woman, Hani Weinberg's father-in-law. She was married to his son, and when she was 24 and she had her third child, 4 months after she had the child, she didn't feel good. She felt some lumps in her breast, and she went to get checked, and it turns out that she had a very progressed and debilitating kind of cancer, that when the doctor spoke to her, he told her, listen, you have a half a year to live. You have a half a year to live, and I could be wrong, and it could be less, but it's not more than a half a year. And you need to figure out how you want to live this half a year that you have. And he gave her a choice. We could give you very, very aggressive treatment, and you'll be totally debilitated and die within, let's say, 8 months. Or we could give you a very light treatment, and then you'll live a lot less, but your quality of life will be better. This is what you need, and you need to decide. So she left the doctor, and she actually felt good. Other than this lump that she felt, she felt good, and she decided to not believe the doctor and what he has to say, to start maybe doing a little bit alternative, to take a very non-aggressive treatment. She wanted to have a good quality of life. She had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a newborn baby, and she was finished her degree in psychology. She had just finished her psychology degree, and she wanted to see what it would be like to not believe this, what the doctor said, and to start living life very intentionally, knowing that every day could be her last day. And she wrote out a whole list of things that she would have wanted to do. She wanted to travel the world. She wanted to spend time with her children. She wanted to work as a therapist. She wanted to become a pastoral counselor. she wanted to go around the world, not only to travel, but to be a public speaker. And she ended up living 8 years. And she was able to fulfill all of her dreams. Now, the book that she wrote are small thoughts that she had on her journey. And after I read it, and I was really blown away by it, I found out that she had 2 other books, and I bought them, and they were really very inspiring. And a lot of them have to do with the kind of avodah she, on her own, came to the realization of living as she's doing this kind of avodah, the kind of avodah that we're doing. So I'm going to be bringing a lot of her poems and some of her stories and anecdotes, and we're going to be learning her as we do the avodah. And I want to share with you something that we were learning with Michal connected to what I was reading with her. So her name is Chani Weinroth, and I want this class to be Le'elu Nishmata. And then,
Can you possibly say slowly or spell her last name?
Weinroth, Chani Weinroth. Oh, look her up. There's a lot written about her. And she actually, Adele heard her lecture in the States, in Brooklyn. She traveled a couple of times and lectured a couple of times. She actually died, I think, 4 years ago, when I think she was able to make it to her daughter's bat mitzvah. And we're going to be learning a lot from her just because it connects to our avodah. I started translating her book 5 minutes a day, and then I found it turns out that her mother-in-law, who was the wife of Yaakov Weinroth, who was the lawyer of Bibi, it turns out that he passed away the same year she passed away. In other words, her husband lost her and his father the same year. Her mother-in-law sits right next to me in the Michal Paris class. Her name is Giselle. I didn't know her last name was Weinroth. And when I was speaking to another friend, and I said, I just discovered this book, and she goes, Giselle's her mother-in-law. And immediately I called up Giselle and I said, listen, I didn't know. I'm looking for other books. Can I have them? And I read it as well. So I want to go into a topic that's called we hear a lot of people saying that they have no strength. They have no strength. And people think of different ideas of, like, they'll say, if I could just go away for like a week or two and lie on the beach in Greece, in the Amalfi Coast, in wherever it is, that is going to give me strength. And Hani was saying, whenever she would go to lecture, she would ask people, what do you want me to talk about? And she was able, like, on a dime, to talk about whatever. She said 99% of the time, people would say, Hani, where do you have your strength from? How do you have strength? Like, you were told you were going to die. It could be over any minute. You have 3 little children. You have a very aggressive cancer in you. Where do you get your strength from? And she usually talks about it, and she comes up with an answer that I have to say I wasn't crazy about. I'm going to tell you what her answer is. However, and then I want to go to the Michal Peretz answer. She said one time she was asked to lecture in an old age home, and she walked in and she said, who more than old people would want to know, how to get more strength? So she stood up in front of them, and before, she didn't even ask them, what do you want me to talk about? What she said is, I'm going to tell you how you could live and have more koach, have more strength. And she said they just looked at her with blank eyes, with a bored look, and they weren't even interested in hearing. Like, the people who she thought would most need it weren't really interested in hearing about, where to get more strength. And she thought it was very strange. And she asked them, like, aren't you interested in this topic? And they said, not at all. And she asked them why. And they said, because we know what gave us strength. And she started to listen to them. And they all started to talk about, when I was a soldier in the army and I fought, and, I had meaning in my life, that's what gave me strength. And the mother and the old woman who cooked big pots of food, and all the children and grandchildren came, like, they were all dreaming of the days where they were vital, where they were able to give, where they were, where they had me, they meant something to someone and they had meaning in their life. And she realized that she took it into two different directions. The one direction where when she speaks to younger people and she says, how do we get strength? She explained that we are like a battery. And it's like when we go to sleep, we plug ourselves in. And it's like the phone battery. We plug it in and we wake up in the morning and it's on 100%. And we're on 100% in the morning. If we're lucky, we wake up on 100%. And then we go throughout our days and we do a lot of shtuyot that eat up our battery without really getting anything out of it. So she says, I have kohot. The reason I have kohot is because I make very conscious decisions about where and how I want to spend my strength. And I just don't let the battery run out on inconsequential things. I'm not going to let my battery run out on stupidities. And she said, what is stupidities? Stupidities are things that don't have meaning for me. And she gave an example. She said when her mother had the children, they were little, Hani's mother, Thursday was a baking day for Shabbat. And she would bake cakes, and the house would be filled with amazing, amazing smell. And this is the way her mother brought in the Shabbat, or this was like the predominant thing she did for Shabbat. She would, buy food and catering, but Thursday was the baking day. And when she got married, she thought, a Jewish woman, Thursday is the baking day. And she said, I baked and I found out that the only one that was eating the cakes was me. And for her mother, baking the cakes was charging her battery or using her battery because that's what gave her life. But Hani realized that's not what gives her life. So she decided not to spend her battery on baking cakes for Thursday. So in her book, in her lectures, and some of her songs, she writes about the mindfulness in which she decides of what she's going to be doing with her time, with her energy, because the time is so, she never knew when she was going to die. She knew that it was there somewhere behind, around the corner. And so she was very mindful with her time and with her energy. However, I agree with her to a certain extent, but I want to take what she said to a different level. I feel like the koach that we have comes to us from God. Every morning we say, Hanoten laya'ef koach. God is the source of all our strength. Now, when does he give us strength? God gives us strength when we're connected to him. We're connected to him. Hashem tells us, in the Torah it says, Hu hanoten lanu koach la'asot chai. He's the one that gives us the strength in order to succeed. How do we connect to this inner strength that we have within us? We need to realize that we're here in this world to bring our tov into this world. We need to take anything good that we have within us and we want to add it. We want to add it into this world because this tov, and God's name is tov, means that God's energy is flowing through us in order for God's tov to come out through us. It's going to come out through us. But what we need to also realize is we need to look at everything around us and say, I choose to do it. I'm going back to choosing what we're doing. I choose to do it. I choose to do it because I choose to connect to God. I choose to connect to God because I want to be the conduit, the messenger, that all of Hashem's tov is going to flow through. I was telling Ralph that when we were talking that like 3 months ago, I went through like a medical procedure that was voluntary, like it was a voluntary medical procedure. They asked me, when do you want to do it? I was trying to figure out when to do it. And I ended up doing it like 2 weeks before my daughter Shalhevet had the baby. Like it was 2 weeks before Shalhevet, it was a month before before Adele. It was 2 months after Tal. Like, I was just trying to find the right time. And I did it. And it turns out that the operation was harder than I thought it was. And my daughter shall have it. She's the first time that I wasn't there for a birth, that I wasn't able to help. Like afterwards, like she had the baby Shabbat, Sunday. I got into my car. It was 2 weeks after the operation. I got into my car. I drove to her. I couldn't even hold the baby. My stomach was hurting. The stitches were hurting, like the works. And I just sat there. I couldn't even bring her food. I found out about a vegan catering, and I had them just send her food. And I couldn't take her kids, so she could rest. And I felt very guilty about it. So first of all, feeling guilty is not connecting to God, because at that point, I need to know that deciding to do the operation, feeling the way I did, not recovering as fast as I thought, it's from God. There's no need to feel guilty. Like, we want to relinquish our guilt. To relinquish it, there's no need to feel guilty. However, I did feel guilty, and through my guilt, I told her, after you have the baby, when the baby's like a month and a half, someone on a sleeping schedule, I will watch your 2 children, and you go away on a vacation with your husband and the baby, because the baby's nursing, and of course, I'm not taking a nursing baby. But I'll watch your 2 kids who are very rambunctious and wild, and she could really use a break. And I'm thinking of doing it, and I promised that I'm doing it next week. I told Ralph that I have no koach to do it, and I realized that when we do things out of guilt, we are not connected to God in the right way, and He will not give us koach. That was not the right reason. That was not the right way to approach me watching her children. If I want to, and remember, we want to be in the Bet Midrash of Mashiach. We want to turn bitterness to sweet. If I want to have koach as I watch Shalhevet's kids, I say to myself, my desire now is to do chesed with my daughter. I want to do, and I want to do chesed. I want her to be able to rejuvenate and have strength to come back, rejuvenate, like, and her marriage, and have strength to raise her children. I want to be part of this mission that she's part of now, having children and raising them. I want to be part of the mission. And part of the mission is taking the children and watching them for 3 days. What do I need for myself in order to do it? And now I go back to Hani, who said, think about, what are the ways that your battery is not going to run out? Like, the way my battery will run out is if I go into it, oh my God, I can't wait for the time to pass, and I want them to come back quickly, and these kids are so wild, and blah, blah, blah. Like, I could go on and on with the bitterness. In order to have the koach that I want to have, I need to connect my action to God. It must connect to God, and it must connect to my choice, to what I choose. I choose to be part of my daughter's mission and bringing children into this world and raising them in a happy way. I choose to give my daughter time off so she'll have strength. I choose to take all of the tov that Hashem gives me and channel that tov to give to my grandkids, to give to my daughter. And only if I come from a place of choice and from a place of connection to Hashem will I have kochot. And I want to tell you, the minute I started to think of it in that way, I felt a surge of energy coming through me, because it wasn't doing it anymore out of guilt. It wasn't doing it because I have to. It wasn't doing it to placate my daughter, to look good in my daughter's eyes. I wasn't doing it to be the good mother. I was doing it because I want to be God's conduit in this world. I want to connect to Him, and I want His good to pass through me. And that is what is going to give me strength. So what do we do in order to partner up with Hashem, in order to have kochot, right? We need to realize that things on the outside are not going to give us kochot. Like, I just went 5 days and I had a vacation, and the thought of watching my grandchildren depleted me of my strength. It has nothing to do with resting. We need to search for things that have meaning just like those old people that went back into the earlier parts of their lives, and you know how they were pioneers and they built the country, and all those things had meaning for them. Search what has meaning for us. Choose to stick to Hashem, to be His messenger, to allow His Tov to flow through us, to connect to Him, to realize that we're His messenger in this world. And from there, Hashem promises us we're going to have strength, because He gives us chayil. He gives us the koach to do chayil. He gives us the koach in order for us to succeed. This is what He told us when we were going into Eretz Yisrael. He's the one that gives us the koach to win our battles. But we need to know that we're doing it b'shem Hashem. We need to connect to Him. We need to realize that we're His messengers, and through that way, we'll be able to give more and more of the good, have more and more energy, not complain that we are depleted and we have no strength, and we need to rest and we need a vacation. I'm all for vacations, and I'm going to take another vacation. I like to travel. I love to enjoy the world. I love to meet people, etc. But it's not going to be because I need strength. Because when I need strength, I'm going to connect to Him. I'm going to give myself what I need also. And I know that I'm going to need a babysitter, once a day for 3 hours. Take care of all that. But in the big picture, I want to join my daughter. I want to join God, and I want His goodness to flow through me.